Today's guest has achieved amazing things for such a young person. Jemima is a diagnosed dyslexic student who is currently studying provisional medicine at the University of Queensland. After taking a gap year, Jemima started her own company called Dyslexic Demystify to support and empower young people with dyslexia. She's presented keynotes to students, teachers and parents at more than 40 different schools around Victoria and Queensland, and recently made her international debut in Japan at the Asian Pacific Dyslexic Festival in 2019. It's my pleasure to speak to Jemima today to share with you her inspirational story of what can be achieved as a young dyslexic. I hope you enjoy this show.
Jemima, it's so exciting to have you on the show today and to share with our listeners all your amazing work that you've been doing. So you recently moved to Queensland to start your degree in medicine. Congratulations. That's two significant life-changing events, studying and living interstate away from your family. How have you been going?
Thanks, Shae. Thanks so much for having me. Look, it's so far so good. We had a few bumps in the road naturally, but I think we are starting to figure out our routine now. And all is going really, really well. I've been enjoying my course a lot. So been really good so far and enjoying the sunny weather up here in Queensland compared to Melbourne.
Well, I must say it has been quite sunny down here lately. We've been a bit spoiled.
We have indeed, yeah.
So did you move up there on your own or have you got family and friends up there?
No, totally alone. So I don't have any family or any friends up here. So it was a bit of an unsettling move, I guess, not having my strong sort of support network around me. But so far I've been coping really well, and we have regular sort of FaceTimes with my whole family on each week. So been coping really well with that. And I'm living in a college style environment, so I've got plenty of young people around me who are here to support me, which is really, really nice. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Have you met any fellow dyslexics yet?
I have actually. I have one of my next door neighbours is actually dyslexic, so there you go. And he's been busily watching all my YouTube videos and making fun of me, I think. But
oh, that's great.
Yeah, I think the 10% is definitely a real figure at college, that's for sure.
So you took a gap year off between school and university, and instead of travelling around the world or nannying like most of us do, you started your own business called Dyslexic Demystified. What led you to establish your own business? That's not really taking a break, is it?
No, it's not. Well, to be fair, I actually did a lot of my travel throughout my school years, which was lucky enough for me. And I actually did nanny at the same time as having my business. So there you go. I did do both. But no, I took my gap year off initially because I thought I needed a bit of a break after some intense years of study, and I'm not very good at taking breaks. I think holidays have always been a bit of a challenge for me. I get bored quite easily. I'm not diagnosed with ADHD, but I feel like I could be on that spectrum, and so I decided, right, I need something to do. And I guess after VCE, I sort of had a bit of a reflect and thought that I'd actually learned a lot of valuable skills during that time, and I'd sort of gone through this huge growth process mentally around my own learning and sort of figuring out what strategies, were working best for me as a dyslexic student and why, and which teachers were working best for me and why. And upon that reflection, I think I just decided that knowledge could be of use to other students like myself. And I guess I wanted to give back a bit as well. And that was sort of part of it. And then I had a friend of mine who actually started a business in this, of the same sort of nature in the autism space. And I thought, hey, maybe I could do something like that and share my knowledge and even just share my story with other young people, other parents, other students and teachers. And that's what I ended up doing. And I just started from there. I literally started, by creating a PowerPoint and just taking my PowerPoint to market and letting people know what I was doing. And it was a very, very organic process. I think a lot of businesses start out that way. There wasn't a business plan. I've never studied business or economics in my life, but I sort of jumped in with 2 feet and it ended up going pretty well. So yeah.
It's funny you say that about growing organically and not having a business plan and never studying business, because that's exactly how the foundation started.
Yeah, exactly
with
right.
our podcast, and then I needed somewhere to host the podcast, and then it kind of grew from there. So it's an amazing achievement for you.
It is, but, I think it's also a bit of a part of my dyslexia as well, if that makes sense, because about 30% of entrepreneurs are dyslexic, and I think a lot of us sort of have those natural entrepreneurial skills sort of that come with our dyslexia. So I just sort of embrace that part of my brain, if you like, and it's a lot of it did sort of come naturally. A lot of us are natural salespeople or just really intuitive at making relationships and connections. So I think I just really tapped into that side of myself and focused on my strengths, and it's ended up going pretty well so far. Yeah.
So you've spoken at over 40 schools in Victoria and Queensland, and you recently came back from Japan, which was exciting to hear, to present over there. So what's the reception been like from schools and parents and other young people that have dyslexia?
The reception of the message, sorry, just to clarify. Yeah.
Your story.
Look, most of the time it's really positive, and a lot of people are just really happy to hear stories of success. I think that's really important, because most people, when they receive a dyslexia diagnosis, see it more as a crushing sort of thing, something that an issue, a problem, a disease, something that they're going to have to deal with for the rest of their life, and it can be quite overwhelming. And I think the perception in our society today, unfortunately, is still that dyslexics cannot be successful, or we're less intelligent or lazier than other individuals. And it's obviously that's absolutely not true. And so for them to, particularly for students, to sort of see that you can be successful, you can still go to university, you can achieve your goals despite having this, thing in the background, I think is really powerful for them. So a lot of the time that message is really well received. When I went to Japan, actually, it was quite interesting, because their systems are perhaps a little bit more behind than ours in terms of accommodations, and not many people have really heard of dyslexia over there. It's not, when you walk around Australia, most people would have heard of the word dyslexia. They might have a bit of a warped vision of what that means, but they have heard of it, whereas in Japan it's just not common. It's only just starting to sort of become a thing, if you like. So the perception over there and the limited help over there is quite different to what we have in Australia. But then in the same sense, if we're looking internationally here, the UK might even be, a little bit in front of us, just because they've sort of got a few more supports that have been, developed a bit more than ours. So we're sort of looking to hopefully move a bit more towards where the UK is. So I think it really depends in terms of how people receive the message. It depends where you lie on that spectrum of how much you know about dyslexia already. So yeah, it's so far really well received, and I've made some awesome connections along the way with people, and particularly with young people. So yeah.
That's fantastic. And it is interesting, because Singapore does a lot of work in dyslexia, and a lot of other Asian countries. But I was going to ask you what it was like in Japan. So because, the UK is much further advanced, particularly in supporting adults, I think, in the workplace. They have dyslexic assessors and people that can go in and advocate for you in the workplace. Which is
that's right. And a lot of the Japanese who are sort of getting onto the dyslexia side of things have decided to actually jump over to the UK. A lot of them are doing, exchanges over there. And I actually have a friend in Japan who is setting up a business around, getting young people in touch with people in the UK so that they can go and do school exchanges over there and become international students over there, so that they can have that increased support, because it's just currently not there in Japan. So, yeah, really interesting to look at it from a bit of an international perspective.
Yeah, it definitely is, because we always feel like we're so far behind, but it's interesting to see where other countries are as well, on the amount of support people are accessing, or even just getting an assessment.
Yes, yeah. Getting a diagnosis is, it's still a very iffy sort of process over there. So, yeah, quite interesting.
So how have you managed study and the business, and you're working as well? So, I mean, that's a lot, especially when you've moved into state and you don't have those support networks like you had in Melbourne. So how have you been managing all of that? What are some of the strategies you've been using?
Well, it's funny you asked that. Look, to be honest, I didn't manage it well in the first couple of weeks, and I had some strategies in place ready to sort of, before I came, so that I was ready and prepared to deal with, all the situations and the new situations, I guess. But to be honest, I have a tendency to work myself into the ground a little bit and to take on too much. And that's sort of what happened here. And, a bit of an honest reflection here, a bit of a raw moment. But yeah, I ended up taking on too much, essentially. I was doing rowing and swimming and water polo and hockey all for my college, and I was doing my business and trying to, visit people and have meetings with people and do Skypes and things from college, and then also doing a full-time uni degree and having placements as well over the weekend, because actually, we could have night shifts over the weekend or whatever. So basically, yeah, I ended up having a bit of a meltdown probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago. But I think there are a lot of things in reflection, in hindsight, that I should have done before I got there, because I ended up getting quite ill and that sort of thing, as you do when, stress accumulates. And I think, I was very good about checking in with myself, and I could see it happening. It didn't just come out of nowhere, this little crash of mine, but I could see it happening. I started out getting a few headaches, and I thought, oh yeah, better slow down. Then I started out getting, a bit of a chest virus and things like that, and I thought, oh yeah, I should probably slow down. Then I started getting conjunctivitis and all these other sort of infections, and at that point, it just, it all got a bit too much just pretty much the day of my exam. And I woke up feeling really, really ill the day of my mid-semester exam. But I ended up pushing through it and doing reasonably well. I did my best, I have to say. But I think it's just really important strategy-wise to be constantly checking in with yourself and self-reflecting so that you can maintain that health, but then also making actions to make sure that, with those check-ins, if things aren't going so well, that you're actually doing, making active decisions to change that state, which is what I wasn't doing. And I have really good open communication with my parents and they knew what was going on. I wasn't sleeping a lot, obviously, because I was on placement as well. So I was getting like 3 hours of sleep a night and trying to film YouTube videos at 2 a.m. in the morning and all these sorts of crazy student life things. But I think I eventually realised I had to slow down. And luckily I've become quite organised. My mum is a little bit OCD in that nature and made sure that I became quite organised. So I have, lots and lots of lists and to-do lists and schedules and calendars and things that keep me on top of what I've got going on. But I've also now become quite good at prioritising and saying, actually, this job can wait, or I can, hand this job over to somebody else. I think delegation is a skill that I am still working on myself. But now that I have a couple of people working for me, I can delegate those tasks to them. And that's, really positive. I just have to remember that I can't do it all. And I have to pass off some of those tasks sometimes, and that's okay. But I think, when I get to that crashing point, I guess one of my key strategies is to find a place that I can go to sort of reflect, formulate a new plan and leave those strategies in that place. For me, I really like to go to somewhere that's quite natural or near water, somewhere where I can be active. I love being active. I think, physical exercise is extremely underrated in terms of how it reduces stress. And that's often what I do to keep myself in check mentally.
So I'm not sure if 5 different sports is...
Yeah, well, look.
I would have thought one would be enough.
Yeah, look, I know. I get so excited by things and I get really passionate about things, and I think that's why I join up for everything. And Yes, I think also just having the ability to say no as well, you know, or just for me, it's not so much saying no, because then I get really sad that I'm not doing things and I get a bit of FOMO, but, you know, it's saying I can do that next semester, or I can try that next year. You know, it doesn't have to be right now. That opportunity will still be there. So, yeah,
That's right.
but I think definitely having a place that you can go to de-stress, is really good, and being away from my family, you know, I don't have the constant sort of ability of debriefing after each day. You know, when I go home to my family, we always have dinner together and we always sort of debrief and tell about our days, and I was missing that sort of ability to be able to do that. And so I've actually got myself a little wellness journal from Officeworks, and it's, you know, it sort of just has little prompts in this journal about, you know, what worries you might be having or what things you're grateful for, 3 positive things that happened today. And it, you know, it sounds a little bit, can I say wanky? But it sounds a little bit wanky. But it's actually been really good to sort of keep my mental health in check and make sure that I'm constantly reflecting and kind of getting out those stresses rather than having them all build up inside myself and cause me more stress. So they're probably the main 2 strategies I've been using. Yeah.
It's all about mindfulness, I think, and just, as you say, checking in. We need to check in and see where we're at, because it can get overwhelming when you're doing multiple things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just feeling like I was, you know, I was going to be missing something. Like I was maybe I'd, you know, missed a deadline somewhere that I hadn't put in my calendar. You know, I was really paranoid about it. So, yeah.
So how's the university been support-wise for you coming in as a dyslexic student, particularly in medicine? That's a really hard course to be undertaking. So what sorts of supports have they put in for you?
Oh, they've been amazing, honestly. I was very sort of resistant to accommodations at university, only because I'd had such a poor experience with school. But I knew I'd had so many people who had told me, oh, trust me, once you get to university, you know, it's so much easier. They'll just give them to you. And I was sort of a bit suspicious. I sort of thought, no, this can't be right, because, you know, you have to work so hard to get those accommodations at school. But I literally turned up, you know, to my disability support meeting, and I was like, right, you know, here I am, here's me, here's my report, you know, of my dyslexia. No, I don't have to keep proving that I'm still dyslexic, even though it's a condition I'm going to live with the rest of my life. I don't have to be reassessed. They're actually going to give me things that will help me to succeed. You know, I actually feel like they're going to help me, which is something that I didn't really experience in the school system. So it was really, really refreshing, actually. And they've got just so many more support networks there. Like, you know, this lady was willing to get me in touch with, you know, this particular learning advisor, or this, you know, counsellor if I needed it, or, you know, anybody else who I needed. And they were just so willing to want to help. And yeah, it was just really, really refreshing. So I ended up getting my accommodations for my exam, so my extra time and things like that, within literally, I think it was a week or 2, which was just crazy, because the BCE process, it takes months for those things to come through. So really quick, really efficient. And just the fact that I didn't have to keep proving that I was still dyslexic was just, yeah, it was awesome. So uni have been really, really great at supporting. So young people, please don't be concerned about going to uni. It is a lot better than school.
It's interesting you say that, because I just did a podcast with a mother and son recently, and that's all they say to people is you just need to get through school, because once you get to uni, it's a whole different world. And it's exactly what you just said. So it's just trying to work out a way to support those young people to get to that point, if that's what they want to do, that they've got those options. So it's really positive to hear that you've been well supported. Frustrating still that it's not happening in the school system. But at least if you're able to take that next step, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So is there any advice that you'd give students or young people that are wanting to do what you've done in moving from home and going to uni? Like in the first week, it's so overwhelming trying to navigate your way around uni, and I still get lost at La Trobe, and I've been studying there since I was 21. So I've been linked with La Trobe for a long time. But it's grown as well and has changed over the years. But I mean, there's so many things you have to think about around navigating, around meeting new people, learning your class timetable. So were there any particular things you did to help you?
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, it's even harder, I would say, because I don't actually have a regular timetable. My course just likes to change things up. So we actually have a different timetable every single week. So I really have to stay on top of things. Look, as I said, with my semi-OCD mother, I think I've become really well trained from a young age in being organised, and I think it's really important to develop those organisational skills before you leave and go, you know, if you're moving interstate or you're moving away from home, go in with a plan of how you're going to organise things, which is what I did. I like having my jobs visible, and I do not like having a diary or something like that that's written down because I lose it all the time. So for me, to have an electronic calendar is the best, you know, point of call. So that's, you know, and I've developed that system of what calendar works for me, and you know, when I input all of those things that I need to be doing. And so going away with a plan of, you know, how are you going to record your homework essentially in uni, you know, where are you going to put that? How are you going to record your notes? You know, are you going to do it electronically on a laptop? Are you going to do it, you know, handwritten? You know, how are you going to record your list of things to do? You know, for me, it's on my whiteboards in my room because then it's really visible, and I can rub them off. It's really nice. But organisation is a really key factor, I think, in becoming an adult and in moving away from home, because you constantly don't have your parents saying, oh, have you remembered to do this? Have you remembered to do that? So I think that's been one of the biggest sort of learning curves for me, not having my mum, and that's why I get paranoid that I'm forgetting things, because I don't have mum saying, you know, have you forgotten about this? But I think, yeah, organisation is really, really key, and finding some new support networks is really, really important, particularly because I don't have any family up here or any friends. You know, I pretty much came in blind. That's sort of why I chose the college environment, in a sense, because I have people around me constantly. I'm very much a people person. I like chatting away to people, and having someone just down the hall or, you know, across the room from me is really nice. But definitely establishing those friend networks, and that can be really hard in the university environment sometimes, particularly if you go to quite a large university. Because, you know, large universities, you might have somebody different, you know, or a different cohort of people in every single class that you're in, even from week to week. So it can be quite difficult to make friends, but really pushing yourself to, you know, start conversations and get to know people and just talk about your interests with people is really good. Sorry, there's a plane going past my room.
That's like, what is that noise?
Yeah. It's always the way. And what else have we done moving away from home?
So have you had any started using any technology that you didn't use at school that helps you with your lessons?
Oh, good question. Yes, but more of the main technology that I started using was I'd actually switched my laptop. That was sort of the only major change I made. I really liked the idea of having all of my notes and everything in the one spot. For school, I hated having some of my notes that were on my computer or PDFs that were on my computer, and then having to switch over to my books, and I would lose my books. I'm very good at losing things.
Me too.
And yeah. And so I wanted to have something that was all in the same place that I wouldn't lose. So I ended up actually going out and buying a new laptop. I'd switched from my Mac, and I also hate Apple intensely, but anyway, that's another tangent. But yeah, I decided I was going to get a PC, and I've got a 2-in-1 that sort of flips into a tablet. So it means I can actually write on the screen when I want to, but I can also have, you know, the typing functions as well. And it's just been so amazing. It's just practical in every way for me. It just really, really suits me. And I wish I had gotten one in school. But yes, I then had the funds to be able to do so. So as a poor student, I was able to afford my computer. But yeah, that was sort of the only major technological change. I found that everything else I've used in school, particularly in year 11 and 12, were really transferable to uni. I struggled a little bit initially in the lecture format, just because I'm so used to interacting with the teacher and sort of prompting questions and wanting instant sort of replies. So it's been a little bit of an adjustment in that sense. But it means that I just have to make sure I'm always attending as a student, because I think a lot of students like to not attend their lectures, which is fine. But, you know, I think for me, I need to be able to ask questions afterwards, otherwise I'll forget them. So, yeah, for me, that, you know, there's just a few little changes that I have to make at uni to make sure I'm on top of everything.
So moving from uni into with your work hat on, or your business hat, for
Yes.
dyslexia demystified, what do you think the perception of dyslexia is in the community for young people? I mean, even at uni, I mean, the perception is seems to be a lot better, a lot more understood. But in the broader sense of the work you do, how do you feel that dyslexia is developing in the community around the awareness and understanding?
Yeah. Look, I mean, it is getting better. I want to start on a positive note. It is getting better. I think a lot more people, as we said before, from the international perspective, most people in Australia know what dyslexia is and have an idea of it. But I think, unfortunately, for young people, the perception is still that we won't be successful. And that's one of the most damaging things, I think, over our young lives is, you know, having that prospect of, oh, well, now I've got this diagnosis, I won't be successful in anything I do, or I can't do what I want to do because, you know, I can't access university or TAFE or whatever it may be, further education. And so that's really crushing. And that's the perspective that I'm trying to change in my business, is that, you know, young people can be successful. You can, you know, achieve your goals. You can do what you want to do. You just have to take different routes to get there. That's my whole message, I guess. So I think, unfortunately, I think that still is the case. And that can, you know, really get young people down, and understandably so. But I think, it is changing with more people, particularly in business or in the workplace, who are becoming really successful. You know, I think a lot of parents choose to show their children the famous dyslexics of the world, so that they can have a bit of an insight into, actually, these people, you know, they're dyslexic too, but they can do really cool things, is awesome. But sometimes that also can seem too far away from them. You know, like me looking at, as a young entrepreneur, looking at Richard Branson going, well, you know, that's 10,000 steps away from where I am now, you know. So having relatable cases of success within our community, I think, are really, really important. But I hope the perception is changing. I think it is getting there, and our systems are starting to reflect that. You know, it's a lot easier to get accommodations now at school, or it's even possible to get accommodations at school now than it was, you know, even 5 years ago. So I think it is changing. But I think success is, definitely one of the biggest perceptions out there. And there's also, unfortunately, the sort of, you know, I had a lot of older dyslexics who have said to me, oh, in my day it was just called stupidity. And, you know, I think that sort of stupid, lazy perception might be still hanging around a bit from the past, which can be quite damaging to self-esteem. But I think we are getting better. Yeah, we are getting better as a society. So, yeah.
And it's a really valid point you raised around that, you know, there's the Richard Bransons of the world, and as an older entrepreneur, you know, trying to get to where he's at is a really, really far off goal. Not that I'm really aiming for that, but it's really important that we show young people, and even I think adults, that there's, you know, you can still achieve what you want to, and you don't have to be a Richard Branson. There's lots of garden variety dyslexics out there. Well, I call myself a garden variety dyslexic.
Oh, yeah, no, me too. I'm in that box as well.
That are just, you know, trying to just get through the day the best we can. So, it's really important that we do showcase a variety of people and not just highlight all the time the successful Shaes and Richard Bransons and the other people that are Orlando Bloom.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what do you hope to see change in the next 5 years? I mean, a lot has happened in the last 5 years, you're right. But we still have a long way to go in Australia. So what do you hope will change for young people?
Okay. I mean, 5 years is a fairly short time, but
we want a lot. We want to change a lot in 5 years.
Yeah, we do. And I think sort of three things, if I had to summarise. I think the first thing would be I would hope that accommodations and things would be more accessible. I still am, at university in 2019 and not all of my textbooks are online. Like, why is that a thing? That's, in my eyes, that's discrimination. That's like, lining up all the kids with mobility issues and saying, oh, no, sorry, you can't have a wheelchair today. So for me, that's I think a key thing that I think needs to change is making those supports accessible. And also just the fact that, one of the reasons why I started YouTube was I was just astounded by the fact that there is so much supportive information out there, but it's not accessible to dyslexics because it's all written down, which I just think is ridiculous. It's the biggest joke in the world. But I think, making sure that we can actually enable those young people to access those supports just purely by having them in a video format or a podcast like we're doing today, something that they can listen to at least so that they don't have to read, I think would be, really, really important. And the other thing is, making sure that those accommodations are accessible in a university or school or institution setting. Can we access those accommodations through the system? Because as we were saying before, the school system is just notorious for turning down students for accommodations, and they are getting better. I do have to say, particularly in Melbourne, VCAR are getting a lot better at accepting accommodations for students with dyslexia, but smoothing out that process in terms of, why do I have to keep proving, every couple of years that I'm still dyslexic? This isn't something that goes away. And that can be quite a traumatic diagnosis experience. I know for me it was, quite an emotional experience as I was diagnosed only at 15. So, having to go through that traumatic diagnosis process all over again every couple of years just seems, a little ridiculous. So, making those processes smoother, and finally, just empowering more young people to talk about dyslexia, because in the young people space, in the student space, it's not there. I think as adults, we talk about it, but as students, we don't talk about it at all. We don't talk about learning disabilities or learning differences, and I think that needs to change so that young people can find other young people who are like them, because, if we do find our tribe and do all those sorts of things, I think, having that support network is just so, so valuable. One of the first questions I ask my parents that I talk to in parent consultations is that, has the young person got another young person who's dyslexic? Have they met anyone else who's young who's dyslexic? And, that's where I can step in as a bit of a student mentor and say, hey, I'm dyslexic too, and we're close in age. But, as I get older, who else is going to step into that, that space? So,
that's so important, because when I was diagnosed, I didn't have anyone either. And it wasn't until after I was diagnosed that we found out half my family was. But for a long time, I was very socially isolated because nobody knew about it. So
absolutely.
Finding a peer is really important.
So, so important. So I think, and also just the more we get it out there, the more young people are aware of it, the less stigma we're going to have as well. So it's sort of killing two birds with one stone. So we just need to be talking about it more in that student space, because, kids just aren't aware. And I think it's really easy, to leave kids out of those conversations, because I think, as a society, we want to protect them. And, even if we have, parents might have their own child who's dyslexic and they've just found out and they won't tell the child, or maybe the child knows but they don't really know what it means or something like that. That can be quite disempowering and can hurt their self-esteem as well, because they're going, I know something's wrong, I know something's different, with me compared to other peers, but I don't know why. And that can be really damaging as well. So, having young people involved in those conversations, we want to protect them, but we also want them to be informed and be able to get information themselves and be able to speak up for themselves and self-advocate and those sorts of things as well. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. That's a great way to finish, I think, our podcast. Unless there's anything else you'd like to say to our listeners out there for today?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't want to go, I feel like we've gone on a few different tangents today. I don't want to go on any other tangents, but if I had any message, if there's any young people out there who are listening, just please You know, there's 10% or even more, they think, of the population who's dyslexic out there. There's probably at least one other child in your class who is dyslexic. So please know that you're not alone. It's not your fault. And it can actually be a really good thing. You know, I love my dyslexic brain. I hope you get to that point as well. I embrace it, you know, at all costs, and it's ended up being a real positive in my life, because, you know, it means that I've been able to meet all these amazing people. I've been able to have all these incredible opportunities. And, you know, I think trying to view it, you know, in a positive light is really important as well. Don't let it get you down.
No, don't let it get you down. That's exactly right. There's a lot of us out there.
There are. You're not alone.
No. Well, that's a wonderful way to end our podcast. Thank you so much. I hope everything goes well for you up in Queensland with all your studies, and that you remember to check in with yourself and not do too many sports.
Yes, thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Shae.
We look forward to speaking to you again at another point.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Jemima, have a great day.
If you'd like to find out more about Jemima, her story and all her work at Dyslexia Demystified, then head to the Dear Dyslexic website. Also, if you haven't already done so yet, make sure you sign up to our mailing list so you can keep up to date with all the work that we are doing at the Foundation. Head to deardyslexic.com. And don't forget, if there's anything you've heard today that you've found distressing, you can contact Beyond Blue 1300 22 4636 or Lifeline 13 11 14. Thanks for listening. Until next time, bye for now.